While there were a lot of personal ups and downs in 2016, there were some real somersaults for the media at large. For one, the very notion of truth came under assault. And while the media pushed back, it's still not clear it's a fight we can win. Adam has more.
After Donald Trump won the presidency, a Trump surrogate made a remarkable claim to talk show host Diane Rehm.
People that say facts are facts, they're not really facts. There's no such thing, unfortunately, more a fact.
Unfortunately, she may be right. Fake news was the breakout star of the 2016 campaign, with one study finding that before the election, bogus stories got more traction on Facebook than real ones. Pushing back will be a challenge for the press, especially given the president-elect's Twitter habits.
You believe that there was widespread voting abuse?
I think there was in some states.
In the millions of people?
California allows it.
They do not allow illegal. You mean illegal?
The assault on truth was the biggest media disruption of the year, but not the only one. The website Gawker is gone, sued into bankruptcy by Hulk Hogan after it published a video of him having sex. Hogan's lawsuit was bankrolled by billionaire Peter Thiel, who Gawker outed nearly a decade ago.
He said this is one of his greatest philanthropic acts of his life.
Meanwhile, here in Boston, it's the end of WHDH as we know it, with NBC launching a new network affiliate.
Same chimes, new channel.
And HDH's owner, Ed Anson, vowing to carry on.
They're going to see, in large part, the same station they've always seen.
And let's not forget the Boston Globe's home delivery fiasco, back when 2016 was still young.
The wait to talk to a real person was in excess of an hour.
Unlike some of the other stories that were reported in 2016, that one was real.
Well, that was quite a story. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
You still haven't gotten your credit, by the way, right, from the Globe?
Actually, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, that's another story.
More to come off camera.
Yeah. Glad you mentioned that. Let's start with the first subject you brought up, which is the fake news. I mean, that's just getting going. And there's been a lot published recently about how to fight back at it, how to take it down. But that's not a problem, as you pointed out, that's easily solvable.
No, it's not. Facebook has said that they are going to try to flag fake news with warning stickers so that people know they're consuming something hazardous when they read them. But what we've already seen is from the right, the label fake news redeployed to refer to the New York Times and the Washington Post for their alleged bias. And that's something, of course, that is not, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about fake news. Fake news is Pizzagate, the notion that there was a Democrat-linked child sex ring run out of this Washington, D.C. pizza parlor, which brought, it's worth pointing out, a man with a rifle. So fake news is something that, but as Joanna said in the first segment, when the mainstream media is as the subject of as much hostility as it is right now, and that hostility is engineered from the very, very top of our political structure, it's tough to keep that sort of false equivalence from being created. And I don't know, I don't know that Facebook labeling is going to keep people from sharing a story that came from some Macedonian troll farm about something that's just not happening.
I think there are things we can do about it, but I think that what we ought to do is focus narrowly on the pure hoax sites, the clickbait farms run by the teenagers in Macedonia that are simply trying to game Google and Facebook to get clicks and make a little bit of money. That we can do something about. I think if we try to go any farther than that, it's just going to get tied up in these, what about the New York Times?
What can we do about that stuff? Like, what is the...
Facebook could just not show stuff from those sites.
But there's other things that they shouldn't be showing. Like, I keep saying this, but those touch here, say amen, pass it, those are all bogus algorithms.
Oh, yes.
And they allow... That comes through my feed 50 times a day.
Well, and that's a future problem, is that Facebook is so many people's platform for news and information. They have so much control, editorial control. They may cede it to an algorithm, but they have editorial control over what so many people see and hear and read in this country.
Well, I think what we have to remember is that this was not set up to be a news outlet. It was set up to be social media. Social. I tell you about my status, the kids, show the pictures, all of that stuff. And then on top of that, all of a sudden, people start sharing more serious information, if you will, and it became this thing. So this has kind of been a whole patchwork effort on their parts, as much as they have put forth some effort to try to identify some of this stuff. And to Dan's point, they're making money off these clickbait farms, so it's been a good thing for them all around.
But wait a second. When you've got the President of the United States promoting false stories, like millions of people, voting illegally. President-elect.
Yes.
I mean, how do you stop that? That woman in your piece believes somehow that 1 million or 2 million people.
But it was interesting because you noticed when Alison Camerata from CNN tried to pin her down. Wait, you believe X? Well, I believe Y. Wait, you really believe Y? Well, I believe Z. It was sort of squishy. She would elude her.
Yeah, and she believes
misinformed, very seriously misinformed.
Yeah, very seriously misinformed.
I want to not to do an abrupt topic change here, but does anyone? Well, what's the lesson you attribute to Gawker's demise at this point in time? Because I think was in a minority, and that I was really not as terrifying as I find the idea of someone like Peter Thiel bankrolling a lawsuit and not being interested in settling and driving an outlet or business because they have a grudge against it. I found Gawker to be such an unsympathetic character that I didn't see them as a noble victim in the way a lot of people
I had very mixed feelings for the same way. Did you? No, I felt like they were bottom feeders in a sense. I mean, we're talking about news and gossip and what's fake and what to. I mean, they to a certain extent they reported out what most other outlets wouldn't have, just things where most other outlets wouldn't have gone, and they went there and went for the jugular in a way that was really it was really poor taste.
And mean-spirited,
right? And yet when you start to censor mean-spirited, how far along that path do you go? So I think ultimately I side for feeling bad for Gawker.
Well, with the possible exception of Nick Denton, the founder of Gawker, I don't think anybody believed that you could run a tape of people having sex without their permission and not paying some sort of a legal penalty for it. My problem with what happened was that the secret involvement of Peter Thiel in financing this site, this lawsuit, removed the normal incentives you have to settle a lawsuit for a reasonable amount of money so that everybody can get on with their lives. Instead, it became a complete personal vendetta that Peter Thiel wasn't going to be satisfied until the site was destroyed, and he succeeded in doing it.
Well, there's the problem. The other thing is they were bottom feeders, but typically their bottom feeding information was correct. So here I have a problem because now I want to get rid of the fake stuff that's, made up crazy bottom feeding stuff, but at least theirs was true. So I'm reluctant to say something that I personally find distasteful most of the time, but is true, should be somehow driven out of business when we are dealing with all this other crap that is not true that people are believing. I mean, so it's I don't know how we get out of this right now.
In a sense, it's the same question that we're going to grapple with now and in the future with WikiLeaks, where it's like, here's this information that is out there. Is it something that everyone needs to know? Your mileage may vary in terms of your editorial judgment, but it's there.
All right, lastly, I want to talk about Channel 7. I mean, I think I finally understand it, thanks to Shirley Young at the Boston Globe. So for most of us, it's going to switch to Channel 10 on the cable dial. For everybody else out there with rabbit ears and whatnot, it's like it's either channel 62 or 60.2 or.
We've got two transmitters.
Exactly.
Right. They are going to be airing. This is NBC Boston, by the way. That's going to be on those numbers.
But what's going to happen to Channel 7?
Channel 7. I just did an interview. I'm doing a radio story next week on this, and did an interview with the GM and Kim Casey yesterday. Yeah. They're going to be broadcasting 12 hours of local news a day, and the argument they make. I mean, to me, the question is, well, isn't that a lot more supply than the demand would warrant? But what they tell you is the way people watch non-news programming today, we watch it via DVR, we stream online. People are not going to DVR the news. They want it to be there when they're interested in it. They're going to start a new 9 p.m. news show. And I could actually, I almost never watch local news. I could see myself watching a 9 o'clock program because that fits my schedule in a way that the existing options don't.
Well, and they're staffing up. And, I mean, they can't argue with that. I mean, it's nice to see somebody investing in local news. I feel like especially in this era of questionable facts, like that's where it's at. And the more watchdogging that they can do with the resources they have, the better it's going to be for everyone.
And this is greater Boston. It's not just Boston. So as long as they do that and really put some muscle behind it, I mean, I think they could turn into, for example, their morning show or whatever, even though I've been a Channel 5 person for a long time. Fox did a really good run for a long time with a good local show. They could do that, and they can do some other, they can become an appointment viewing, if you will. in and out during the day.
Well, we'll see, and I hope they succeed, but New England Cable News, which we all love, has been around for a long time, and they don't get a huge audience. And now you've got two operations competing for that same fairly small
Psychologically
audience.
cable, though, versus broadcast. We'll see. All right. Finally tonight, we remember some of the journalists who passed away in 2016. Longtime New York Times street fashion photographer Bill Cunningham. CNN sportscaster and sartorial wonder Craig Sager. The longest all-time reporter fixture on CBS's 60 Minutes, Morley Safer. The host of PBS's The McLaughlin Group, whose signature sign-off was "Bye-bye," John McLaughlin. Beloved ESPN sports commentator, John Saunders. Two of the founders of Channel 5, Leo Berenek and Bob Bennett. Boston Globe columnist and the world's foremost tennis authority, Bud Collins. PBS's The NewsHour and Washington Week host, Gwen Ifill.